genetically predisposed to become my mommy. So all I had to do was look down at my hand. Oh, there's my mommy right there. And I shouldn't have never been afraid.
Wow.
So being afraid is a terrible, terrible thing.
Yeah.
But nothing happens by accident. Because if that hadn't happened, I would have continued making money. I wouldn't have cared about the truth. I wouldn't have cared about where we are. I wouldn't have cared about the IRS. The IRS led me to the idea of what in the hell are we paying taxes? If my family was forced to come over here, kidnapped,
Mm-hmm.
brutalized, forced labor, raped, murdered. But under all of that, we built this entire country. Now, if I'm a contractor, I build a home for you.
Right.
You can't pay for the home. What happens? That home comes to me by default.
Exactly. Yeah.
So by default, the entire United States, all of its infrastructure, all of its Capitol buildings, everything that's been, the streets were built by us. They have never paid us for it. Now, the Brattle Group, which is an independent statistics group, they did an evaluation of what Barbados and their relationship with England, with Britain owes Barbados. Said it was $4.5 trillion for the 350,000 slaves that were brought over. It's $4.5 trillion. But for the U.S., they said it was 108 to 131 trillion dollars that was owed to the descendants of slaves that the reparations should go. Now, they don't have that. They can't even get that in 15 years from the GDP. Our GDP, we get maybe about 10 trillion at the most. Right now, there's $20 trillion in total money available, but we owe $34 trillion.
Right.
So we're paying $680 billion a year in interest just on that money that will never be paid off because there's never enough money printed in order to pay it off.
So I know you have a very illustrious reparations plan.
Yes.
You mentioned that the other night as well. And that is one of the questions I wanted to ask.
Well, let's do it.
What that plan is. But I think it's important for the people to understand where we are as a nation in terms of the numbers. Because you asked me a question, like how many do I think is here? How many?
What population, what
the
percentage of the
population.
population do we
And
make
I said
up?
50 million.
Yeah. And it
you
turns
said it's
out
probably more like 100.
it should be.
Yeah.
It feels like we make up a third of the country. We fill up 90% of the prisons. We have so much legislation regarding the descendants of slaves, but they say we only make up 12 to 13% of the population. Now, does that make sense to